All right, welcome back. It's Talk of the Town here on Thursday, October the 16th. Nice to have you tomorrow morning live at Krispy Kreme. We'll be at Krispy Kreme from 7 to 9 tomorrow. A lot of specials over there. The Halloween donuts are out. Get you a Ghostbusters donut, McGee.
Can't wait.
I know you're excited. And our special guest tomorrow morning, East Carolina Offensive Coordinator Lincoln Riley, live at Krispy Kreme tomorrow morning. We hope everybody in town will come by and say hello to Lincoln. Congratulate him. He might be the hottest name in college football right now, the offensive coordinator for the Pirates. Lincoln Riley tomorrow morning. Come on out and see Lincoln and tell him about all the great things about living in Greenville, North Carolina, and why he should stay here for many years. That's just my suggestion. All right, let's go to the telephone. Let's go to the phone right now, and on the telephone is our buddy Becki Gray from the Carolina Journal and the John Locke Foundation. Good morning, Becki. How are you?
Good morning. Doing great. Well, I tell you, this Krispy Kreme, the push for the Krispy Kremes, it really sounds good. I may come back I may drive down to Greenville.
Come on
tomorrow.
down. We love to have you. I'll bring you a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man donut. How about that?
Oh, wow. That sounds wonderful.
They got the Ghostbusters donuts out. Hey, listen.
Right. I don't know what's more appealing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go
there are a couple of things going on. We just talked to our friend on the air, our buddy Chris Mossman, who used to be the general manager of WITN, is now the general manager and vice president for Gray Television up in Lexington, Kentucky. We checked with him on the rumors that the Democratic Party is pulling ad dollars out of the state of Kentucky. We hear they're coming to North Carolina. He confirmed for us that the Democratic Party has not placed television in Kentucky next week, which leads us to believe that they're giving up on the Mitch McConnell race, although he says some of the polling up there still shows that race neck and neck with Grimes, the Senate candidate, the Democratic Senate candidate. But we're hearing all that money's coming to North Carolina to support Kay Hagan. What have you heard?
Well, I know for a fact that there's been a lot of money spent here in North Carolina. $59 million so far. Some of the experts that I've talked to have said in the next 2 weeks, by the time this is all said and done, it would not surprise them to see $75 million spent in North Carolina. I've also seen reports, Henry, that this race here in North Carolina is the most expensive in the country. So clearly a lot of money. And, what we're going to see in the next 2 weeks is a lot of polling, a lot of shifting around the country, and a lot of that attention may shift to North Carolina as long as this Hagen-Tillis race remains neck and neck. And the polling is certainly indicating that. If anything, the polling that I've seen just in the last couple of days would indicate that maybe Tom Tillis is pulling a little ahead of Kay Hagan in this Senate race.
That's what I hear also. But here's the thing, Becki. This race has been dead even almost since it began. And now there was a time when Hagan got a little bit of a lead, but all that money, $59 million being spent in North Carolina, and it's still dead even. So you wonder unless there's some sort of a big story that comes out. And I want to talk to you about the story that Don Carrington wrote on Carolina Journal about Chip Hagan, Kay Hagan's husband. But that one doesn't seem to be getting any traction. But unless there's something really huge that comes out between now and Election Day, it looks to me like this thing comes down to voter turnout.
It may very well, that may be exactly what happens. We see this generally in these midterm elections, that turnout is relatively low. But some interesting dynamics going on here. Early voting begins, I think it's next week, but we've seen absentee ballots and requests for absentee ballots. And so there are people that are keeping an eye on that. And there's some puzzling trends with that, in that I think the request for ballots for Democrats are ahead of Republicans that are requesting those ballots, but a lot of unaffiliated are requesting ballots. One of the things we've seen here in North Carolina, it is still a puzzle to those who track these things very closely, is who are these unaffiliated voters and who are they going to vote for? Mm-hmm. What are they looking for? Those kind of things. So a lot of political gurus are really looking into that to try to figure that out. You mentioned a breaking story. The other thing is what I'm saying, and I'd be interested to see what you think about this, but I'm seeing sort of the focus of the debate, the focus of the campaign is moving away from education, she came out really hard and accused him of being cutting education, being an opponent of public education. What the facts have shown since then is that actually education spending in North Carolina has increased under Tom Tillis' leadership in the General Assembly. Nationally, some things that now are coming forward with this Ebola threat, with the continued threat of terrorists and what's going on in the Middle East, begins to focus on things that a United States senator would actually have an impact on. Mm-hmm. And I think in addition to if a big story breaks, and I think this Carolina Journal story is a game changer. I think it is one of those stories that could very much change the dynamics of this election. But it's also what's happening at the national level when you have a threat of Ebola or terrorist or something that threatens the safety of your family at your kitchen table. I think voters have to begin to ask, who do I want in charge? Mm-hmm. Who do I want making those decisions that affect those things that are very close to my heart? As much as Kay Hagan has tried to tie these education spending things around Tom Tillis' neck, which, again, the fact is North Carolina has increased education spending. Fact of the matter is a United States senator has very little to do with education decisions at the federal level and certainly at the state level.
Well, that's the thing.
Have a lot to say.
I've been saying that Tillis has got to change the dialogue. I think he's made his point about the education funding thing. It just blows my mind that they still are parading school teachers on television to tell that lie. But I can't understand the justification for it. When the numbers are clear, it's addition and subtraction. The budget was X before Tom Tillis took over. It was $1 billion more starting this year. I mean, that's not a $500 million cut in education. But be that as it may, I think again, Tillis' campaign, and I think they've done a pretty effective job of it. In touching up Hagan with her missing the Armed Services Committee briefing on ISIL and attending the cocktail party in New York. I think they've got to change the dialogue and get off of state issues because this is not a state legislative race. This is a U.S. Senate race.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and also the integrity of the candidates. And I'll tell you one reason why I think that the Hagan campaign has stayed on this education issue and attacking Tillis on it is because she really doesn't have a lot to run on. Now, some would argue, and I don't disagree with this, that, as a United, there's gridlock in Washington. Yeah. I don't know that anybody except President Obama has walked away with, real policy successes or things that they can really run on. She doesn't have a lot to run on. Tom Tillis does. He had a very aggressive agenda for the General Assembly. This General Assembly, this governor has done more as far as reforms and moving North Carolina in a different direction than we have seen in generations here. Now, you may like those things or you may not like those things, but I don't think anybody can disagree with Tom Tillis is a leader who gets things done. Kay Hagan herself has described herself as moderate, as sort of middle of the road. She doesn't have a lot in her record as a United States senator. So, that's another dynamic that I'm seeing that, again, you may not like what Tom Tillis did, or as he was the leader of the General Assembly, you may not like what this governor has done. But I don't think that anybody would disagree that this is a group that has sat on their laurels and has not gotten anything done.
Let me ask you this.
And then, of course,
Let me ask you this question: the Greg Brannon effect, which I continue to worry about. Greg Brannon has refused to endorse Tom Tillis. He got 40% of the Republican vote, or something like that, in the primary. Maybe it was more like 28%. Now that I think through it, but 28% of the Republican voters supported Greg Brannon in the primary, and this thing is so razor close now, so razor thin. And you got this crazy libertarian, the Huff guy, the pizza delivery, the 55-year-old pizza delivery man. He's going to take some percentage of vote. I mean, is the Brannon effect going to have? Is Tillis going to have to overcome that to win, or are all these people that are saying that they won't go to the polls, or are they just trying to make a statement? They really are more concerned about Kay Hagan and Obama, and they'll really show up on Election Day. What do you think about that?
That's kind of the million-dollar question. As I am out traveling around the state talking to groups, there is still a lot of dissension within the Republican Party, and the Greg Brannon folks who tend to be much more conservative than Tom Tillis. The dilemma that a Republican candidate always has, particularly in North Carolina, is that, in order to get through a Republican primary, there are different factions, and generally there are people who are very conservative and those who are much more moderate Republicans. In order to get through a general election in North Carolina, both Republicans and Democrats have to have votes from the middle, from those unaffiliated voters, or pull from the opposite party in order to win. So it's always a dilemma for Republican candidates to run on the conservative side during a primary and then remain true to their principles that get enough crossover votes to win a general election. And we're certainly seeing this with Tom Tillis. What I'm also seeing across there is, as we get closer to this race, and it does appear to be so close, that many of the Brannon supporters are saying, I will hold my nose and I will vote, because although I don't love Tom Tillis, I hate him less than I do Tillis-Hagen. It's one of the.
That's what I think is going to happen too. Let me ask you about this article that your organization published. Our friend Don Carrington, who I often say is the #1 investigative reporter in North Carolina. Here's the thing: in the old days, and I'm talking like 10 years ago, when he was reporting on Easley and Dumplin'. He would write something on the Carolina Journal, and then 2 weeks later it would end up on the front page of the News Observer. Now, I'm not seeing the News Observer carry anything about this story about Hagen's husband, but Don has uncovered that he says factually that Chip Hagen, Kay Hagen's husband, applied for stimulus money more than once, got it based on a proposal for a green energy company, used some of the money for what he said he was going to use it for, but had over $100,000 left over, and he didn't return the money. He just put it in his bank account. Is that pretty much the story?
That's pretty much the story. And all of this is laid out in Carolina Journal. You can go there, carolinajournal.com, and the story's on the front page of our page.
But the mainstream media isn't touching it. And is it
right.
because it came out so late, and they think, well, it's just political hoopla?
Well, come on, I'll let you you and our listeners this morning sort of figure that out. But, we've gotten a lot of attention from out-of-state media outlets. It was the featured story on Drudge yesterday. It's being talked about on national talk shows. Thus far, and, we're just a couple days into this. I mean, I'll give them credit. They're busy. But it has drawn scant attention from the North Carolina press corps. Let me say that. Pick up any newspaper, any mainstream newspaper, pick up the News and Observer, really any day, and it won't what their slant is. But, this is a big story. Everything that you said, you did a great summary of it. One thing about Don Carrington, in addition, or the reason why he is the best investigative reporter in North Carolina, is because all of his stories are very, very well researched.
Yep.
So he lays out the facts with this. And we're just not seeing any real widespread reporting on this. But I think that when a government official uses their office to personally enrich themselves and their family, that's something that voters need to take into consideration during an election. And so, again, this story is on carolinajournal.com, and it is worth taking a few minutes to take a look at it and just get up to speed on what's going on. Yeah,
here's the thing. You may not agree with the politics of your organization, of the John Locke Foundation. I do. But I'm saying a listener this morning or a viewer may not agree. But, one thing that you can say about the John Locke Foundation, the Carolina Journal, they don't print – they print a lot of opinion and editorial content, but they don't print lies. And if this story is on Carolina Journal, it's just like you said, you can believe it's been researched and confirmed.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And we're very proud of that, and we have built a reputation over 25 years for that kind of thing. Yeah. Again, you may not agree with our opinion on things, but I don't think that you can – and if anyone has information that conflicts with this story, please call us and let us know. I mean, it is in our best interest, and we strive every day to be as accurate as we possibly can.
Becki, last question for you. As we look ahead now, we're 19 days away from Election Day. I believe early voting starts, next week? What do you have any sense of where this thing may go? I don't want to ask you who's going to win, because I don't think anybody knows the answer to that. But let me phrase it this way: what do you think has to happen for Tom Tillis to win this thing?
Well, I think his voters need to get to the poll. I think people need to pay attention. But here's something else that I've been thinking a lot about, Henry. I think that to my knowledge, our U.S. Senate race is the only one in the country where we have a Speaker of the House running for the U.S. Senate. And so really what this race has, a broader way to look at it is, this race has become a referendum on the North Carolina General Assembly and Pat McCrory's governorship, with the reforms and the things that Tom Tillis has done. He has had to go across the state and defend the things that the General Assembly has done. Consequently, every incumbent member of the General Assembly, and particularly the Republican caucus, has also had to defend the reforms and the things that they've done. Now, I happen to believe that those reforms are moving our state forward in a very, very positive way, and we're starting to see the results of that, with lower unemployment, with the economy starting to turn around, and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But nowhere else in the country. So all of these ads and this $59 million so far that's been spent have a real ripple effect in every one of those legislative races.
Down ballot races.
Well.
Yep, you're right.
Right.
No doubt about it.
And so consequently, what I think we're going to see is how those legislative races shake out are going to very much determine how strong the momentum is in Raleigh over the next 2 years to continue those reforms.
Yeah.
If Republicans lose a bunch of seats in the General Assembly, they're going to be very nervous about continuing on with those reforms. If they hold on to those seats, only lose a couple, certainly if they pick up seats, I think that there will be sort of the wind behind their backs to continue this momentum of reform.
Yeah.
So that's something that I'm looking at and watching as we're going through this. And of course, we'll be looking at the week after the election to see where we are. But there are a lot of other repercussions to this race that go beyond just this U.S. Senate race.
All right. Listen, it's great to hear your voice. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for coming on this morning. Your insights are always right on target. Thank you, Becki. Appreciate it.